Hello. What we are going to be showing you today is how we go from this wheel, which as you can tell it has a lot of corrosion and about this, just not that good of shape. But we are going to go from this to this. This one's almost finished, but as you can tell, it's pretty well polished up and shined up. Alright, we'll do these upper ones first, and then the lower ones we'll get to later, but they'll usually come out when you pull back the center hub. So we'll start heating one up. And usually you got to start about waiting roughly around 30 seconds for the first try. And then after 30 seconds, if you try it and it's still a little bit sticky, you want to do another 10 seconds. But you don't want to wait till it gets red hot, because you'll cause a lot more damage to the actual thread. So you want to wait about 30 seconds, and then you'll start loosening it up. And you'll always want to make sure you have 2 of the 1/4-inch wrenches. Anything, because one will get hot and you got to keep on changing them as you're going and doing them out. And you want to make sure you're actually on, not the round part, but the actual little pre-spoke piece. That may be hot enough, let's see. Alright, that one came out. And then you go on to the next one. And you really don't want to try to aim it into the rim or either part. You want to kind of have it where you're not blowing in like this, you're more at an angle. Just so that way the heat is not going directly to the rim. And while you're doing all this, the actual rim itself will get hot. Not super hot, but it can get hot. Now, from doing this in the past, the average that you can expect breakage-wise is about 1 out of every 4 will break on you. It's just how it is. So whenever you start this project, you always want to make sure you start off with 5 rims. And hopefully you'll not break a single one of these. But if you do, then you got to replace them. And then you just pick them out, remove them, put them into a box like this. It doesn't have to be a box like this, but just anything where you can hold them. Alright, working on the last 2. One thing is so far on this wheel, I haven't had a single one break. But as I was mentioning before, if you count on 1 and 4 breaking, that's what your average is going to be. But let's say you've been working on this wheel for a while, you come to one, you've done the 30 seconds and you've done, let's say, another 30 seconds where when you pull away, it's smoking and everything because it's so hot. Like, let's say I've been working on this one for a minute or so, and you come to this one and it's still, it only wants to move a little bit back and forth. You could keep on heating it and then letting it get really hot where it smokes, and then you take it away, get some ice, put on it to help cool it down, and then you reheat it back up again. That way you're getting it to expand, contract, to help kind of break the bond of the Loctite that's inside. And then when you're all said and done, it'll come loose. Well, how about this? This one's actually not wanting to budge. But we'll see how it is. Right. Now let's start on this side. Alright. Make sure when you pick them up, you use something that will not conduct heat because these suckers are hot. Alright. Alright, now, if everything goes right, this centerpiece will pop out. So you won't have to heat up any of these at this point. But we're going to heat it from the back side. Just by heating up each one of these, and hopefully they don't break. If they break, then you're just better off putting the bolts back in and leaving them in there, because to drill and tap them, you can run into an issue of popping holes where they come through. But one thing you definitely want to do is when you are doing taking the wire wheel, you want to get the inside and clean it off here, because sometimes some scale can build up enough to where it actually, if you put on your tire, it may cause a little bit of wobbliness. But when you come in here, you want to aim right on the actual nut itself. You can't help but warm up the wheel around it, but you try to make sure a lot of the heat is mainly on the head of the nut. And you want to give it about the same amount of time, right around the 30-second mark. Guess that one's being a little bit of a... Took a little bit, but we got her. Now sometimes on these, if you're trying to pull these out, you don't really want to put more than maybe a good amount of force, maybe 25 foot-pounds, whatever, to try to get these off. If they're not really wanting to come out at 25 to 30 foot-pounds, go and heat them again, because it should just take a slight little nudge and then they'll start coming out pretty free. You can just stop. Alright, when we last left off, we were able to get all these out, but a problem that you'll end up getting to is every once in a while the one will break, like you see in there. So what you do is you got to do a two-step system. Well, first is just a pilot hole, where you use the little hole, and you only want to go in maybe about half inch, and then you'll come out with this one and do about 3/4 of an inch, and put tape around it because you don't want to go too far. And then we start drilling. Alright, now we start going with this guy. Now when you do this, more than likely you're going to go off a little bit, but that's fine. I mean, unless you're having to do this for like, if you're only having to do maybe 2 on a wheel, depending where they're spaced at, it won't be an issue. But any more than 2, you really want to make sure you get it centered. Alright, for this next procedure you'll need a punch, drift punch, and a mallet or hammer. Doesn't really matter. But you got to watch out when you poke through on the other side. You don't want to hammer too hard where you're going to punch a hole through one of these holes. Otherwise you'll end up with something like this, and it'll ruin your whole center disc. So on this next one though, you want to make sure you have it over a table, spaced out enough where you can tap on it and it can pop out. And the hardest one is always going to be this one that you had issues with, but and that has already tapped out. Alright. And that's how you get the centers out.